and then we'll start the webinar. That's great. I can see people arriving. Hi, everyone. It's great to see many of you here. So as I mentioned just now, you are very welcome to the Zero Waste Europe live webinar. Just feel free to introduce yourself in the chat box. And I suggest we actually start this webinar. And people will keep coming in, but it's wonderful to see everyone here. So this webinar is the first Zero Waste Live webinar of 2023. So really a big warm welcome to all of you, and thank you for joining us. So our webinars actually happen once a month from October to June, and we cover, of course, topics around waste-related issues. And for those who don't know Zero Waste Europe, because this is who we are a Brussels-based NGO working on advocacy at the EU level to achieve a zero waste society. But also, and very importantly, we are a network of organizations all over Europe implementing zero waste strategies at national and local level. And we have, of course, many members as attendees, but also as our speakers today. So Zero Waste Cities is Zero Waste Europe's program that is dedicated to helping cities and communities transition towards zero waste. So it brings together a European platform of knowledge for local stakeholders to really support them to implement best practices and also mentoring and recognition programs for municipalities. And today we have nearly 500 municipalities in Europe in 15 countries who have all committed to go zero waste, led also by the development of the world's first zero waste city certification. And a big part of the work we do also in the Zero Waste Cities program of Zero Waste Europe is that we build and we share knowledge around key zero waste topics that are really relevant for everyone working in the field and at local level. And today's webinar is exactly that. So we have amazing speakers here from our members in Ukraine, from the Zero Waste Alliance Ukraine. And we'll be hearing from them about all the work they've continued to do in the past year in the middle of a war. Because as you know, since nearly 1 year now, the people of Ukraine have been suffering in the midst of an unnecessary war, which has brought misery and pain and destructions for millions of people in Ukraine. But even in these very, very difficult times, there are stories of hope. And this is what we want to do in the webinar today. We want to share these stories of hope and resilience and actually provide a real platform for the very people who've continued to work to make Ukraine not only a safe space for its citizens, but also a sustainable one. So back already in 2020, the city of Lviv in Ukraine, and we have Irina here to talk about this. Lviv became the first in the country to commit to becoming a zero waste city. And this was then soon followed by Lubotin, near Kharkiv, as the second zero waste city in the country. And this was a really important moment because it really showed how these pioneer cities really committed to a new path for managing their waste. And it really showed that this path did not follow the traditional status quo of landfilling or burning most of the waste that is generated. And when the war started, we thought that the work on zero waste might be halted for our members, so they would be able to focus on other priorities. But this has not been the case, as you will hear today. Because despite the most difficult circumstances, the work of the Zero Waste Alliance Ukraine and their members has continued. And through all this work and everything they've been doing, they've been offering a beacon of hope to their fellow citizens, but they've also been showcasing how principles of safety, humanity, sustainability can prevail during even the most difficult and testing times. So with this webinar, we will go into further detail to look at how the philosophy, the approach, and the framework of zero waste is still being applied in Ukraine today, despite the difficult circumstances that the war has created. So we will have 3 specific case studies, which will be presented by each of our amazing speakers. First, we will hear how an eco-hub in Kharkiv is providing additional services for people in need during the war. Then we will hear the work of setting up the first urban garden in the city of Lutsk to provide great opportunities for locals to begin composting. And then finally, we will hear the case of initiating and really implementing reuse systems among internally displaced persons in Lviv. So how this webinar will go is that we will hear from each of our speakers. They will each speak for 10 minutes. And after each of the presentation, we will have about 10 minutes for any of your clarification questions for the speaker. And then at the end of all the presentations, we'll have about 30 minutes for a joint question and answer and discussion with all the speakers, ending this webinar at 3:30 Brussels time. Okay, so before we start, a quick note on the tools for the webinar. As you can see, we have the chat function open, and then there's also the question and answer tool. So you can introduce yourself through the chat function, which many of you have already done, so that's great. But for your questions for the speakers, please submit this via the Q&A tool. So then I can pass these on to the speakers to manage and save a bit of time. Just to note, we're also live streaming on YouTube. Anyone who's joining via YouTube, you can also submit your questions in the chat on YouTube, and these will be relayed back to me so I can pass them on to the speakers. So without any further delays, we're going to start this very exciting discussion. And I want to thank again our members from the Zero Waste Alliance Ukraine for being here. And our first speaker is Ola Binonieshka. I hope I pronounced your last name right, Ola. Ola is the administrator of the Zero Waste Alliance Ukraine, and she's here to speak on behalf of also of Anna Prokayeva, who couldn't make it, unfortunately, today. Anna is an environmentalist, and she's the head of Zero Waste Kharkiv, and she's one of the founding members of the Zero Waste Alliance in Ukraine. And she's the coordinator of the EcoHub network, which is an open space where zero waste principles are realized. So without further ado, I will hand over to you, Ola, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, for introduction. Hello, all. I will share my presentation. 1 second. Tell me, do you see it?
Yes, we see it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I'm not supposed to be here and to speak here on this webinar, but actually Anya had not opportunity to join us, so I'll be instead of her. I would tell about EcoHub, a space where zero waste principles realized in fact. So let's start. It will be the story about way from recycling campaign to zero waste movement. Anya, for 10 years, worked as a TV journalist and hosted a TV show about the global problem. And in 1970, he decided to join a tour to Poland and Baltic country to see how waste management works there. And she knew a lot about prevention and waste hierarchy, and she decided to act. So she created the concept of ecological social action and called it, as you can see, Shelter the Bag. Her friends and a lot of unknown people helped to realize this idea in life. And first, what this organization, this movement need was that they didn't have a vehicle to collect waste. They asked a lot of people, a lot of recyclers to support their idea, but a lot of them say no to them. So finally, they found the stakeholders who supported them. And the next task was to invite people to support our idea. And they also don't have any banners. So Anna drew this logo by the hands at her home. And as the result, people really like this banner. You can see it attached to the bus. And for example, this guy, this photo, they printed the poster, and Zero Waste Kharkiv organized the shelters back every 2 weeks. What they saw is that people collected and waste bags and other kinds of waste in their home. They were waiting for us for this bus, and media wrote a lot about this movement, and a page of Zero Waste Kharkiv was in social media was full with news, with some kind of request, and they started with waste collection, but later people began to bring clothes and different types of things such as toys, books to reuse. So they decided to transfer it to a charity shop. So waste went to the local recycling factories. In this way, they excited more than 1 year. And Kharkiv, as you know, is one of the biggest cities in Ukraine. It's really big city, developed industry and business infrastructure, and also with big factory as a result of it. And their journey held more than 4 or 5 hours per day. So when their mobile point got stuck in the traffic jam, people didn't want to wait for it for 2-3 hours. So they decided to open like statistics station and to learn more about zero waste principles, to learn more about Zero Waste Bureau. And they also understand that recycling is not enough. It doesn't really solve the problem, the pollution problem. And one day they decided that they need a stationary point where all zero waste principle works, not only sorting station. So they organized sorting for the large event for 2,000 people. They earned a lot of money for the month, and she decided to spend this money for the rent of this small place. And their friends Pride Hub had the neighbor's office, and they recommended starting with this room. It was really uncomfortable room in the basement where was a steep step, but there was a big, really big plus. It was a small rent. Also, this room was filled of a lot of rush, as you can see, and they spent more than one month to clean it up. And at the same time, they decided to describe a new concept of EcoHub that includes more zero waste principles. And Anna sent this proposal to the competition from Yves Saint Laurent, Yves Rocher Foundation, and it was a big surprise for her to win it. So you can see an Anna here, who's supposed to be here with us. So let's go ahead. In 2019, the EcoHub idea gained popularity among Kharkiv region. People asked to open EcoHub near their apartment blocks and offered even their premises in different areas all over the Kharkiv region. Thus, 5 EcoHubs I started to operate in different cities, in different districts of Kharkiv. The same year, an eco hub was open in Lubotyn, where people could purchase reusable items in exchange for recyclable materials or for a symbolic payment. But all eco hubs in Lubotyn was closed soon because people didn't have any interest in it. So they asked Anya frequently, what are you, religious texts or something else? So you can see this place. Yeah, also we have our partners Ashan, where we held a public consultation for consumers about zero waste principles and how to buy goods without packaging. Here you can see Hedge. It is made from 100% EcoHub waste. It was plastic containers under milk, caps from plastic bottles, and also plastic bags. Also, we start to produce our own goods, our unique goods, I will say. For example, mini containers for waste from used cardboards. Also, you can see here bag containers for waste from used craft bags for food delivery. And look at that, here is stylish bags from used jeans. And also our unique product is EcoPoof, made from used jeans with cut plastic of non-recyclable materials, non-recyclable packaging inside it. So for first 10 of these poofs, we give to our libraries in Kharkiv region. Also, we sew shoe covers from textile of old umbrellas. We had a needlewoman who made it for us. So at the beginning on 2020, we really had everything. We had volunteers who helped us to consult people. We have stakeholders who supported our movement and share our messages. EcoHub worked 4 or 5 times per week, and we collected and transferred about 20 tons of waste amounts, and about 500 people visited our place, our EcoHub amounts. And also Zero Waste Kharkiv had really different source of funding. It was donates, it was sale of waste, it was also reusable goods, a sale of our services, it was training, consultation, repair, and other. I said that this organization was and is really unique, and people really like it. And the main goal of Anna was to make EcoHub self-sustaining. And 1 year ago, she saw that they were able to employ 1 people as an administrator of this station, and this person even internship until the end of February, but unfortunately the work came to our home, and then EcoHub is a hub with humanitarian mission, and recycling plants were closed. Some of they relocated to other cities. They gave away all glass bottles to produce Molotov cocktails, to burn some Russia techniques or Russia vehicles. So it really was useful. And hundreds of people lost own homes and clothes and everything they needed. And EcoHub helped them with all this stuff, with medicine, with clothes, even with plates. So during first months of the war, they provided we think more than 1,000 refugees in Kharkiv and also in Kharkiv region. And first 3 months of a war, this eco hub transformed and transferred clothes. You can see here transferred clothes and all supplies sink to the another city in Kharkiv region. They do it by train because the highway was too dangerous to gain. So also there was a lot of different project with another people, with another country even. So we're really thankful and really grateful for all of you that you help us and help to do it at the darkness time. And yeah, here you can see people who take the clothes, medicine, and also Anya said that they're really looking forward for a new building of the Eco Hub because the oldest one was closed due to a high rent. So yeah, so far reuse works, and now in a new way with mobile point and by post office. But Anna said that they don't want to stop and plan to come back. And now we're looking for a new building. So yeah, here is our contact. You can see it. Yes, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ola. That's a really amazing and incredible presentation and achievement and everything you've been doing. If anyone has any questions for Ola and Anya, feel free to ask this in the Q&A. You can just write that in the Q&A box. Maybe I can ask one question to kickstart for in case anyone is shy. Maybe if you can, if you can tell us a bit about any kind of concrete support you got from the city to help you set up the Eco Hub, you know, even when you started, but also during since the war started.
Yes, sorry, I didn't know it. Maybe someone from Ukraine can help me.
Yeah, maybe someone else here. Maybe Irina or Katerina. No?
Oh, hard to tell.
Okay, that's fine. So I can see in the chat box, I was asking, what question we were asking, if there was what kind of concrete support and engagement happened from the city to support the setting up of the Eco Hub and the continuation of the Eco Hub since the war. If anyone knows, you can share in the chat box. If there are no other questions at this stage, but of course we can come back to you, Ola, later on. I can see a question. So, were you concentrated with some of your, wait, hold on a second. This was in the chat box. So were you concentrated with some of your activities on the water? Was it only plastic?
It was really plastic, and it is really about plastic, not about water for now, but maybe in the future, yes.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much, Ola, and feel free to come back with questions later on for Ola. We'll have time at the end of the 3 presentations. So we can then move on to our next panelist. We've got here Katerina Demidyuk, who's an environmentalist. Katerina is the head of the Ukrainian NGO Zero Waste Lutsk, which is also one of the members of the Zero Waste Alliance Ukraine. So Katerina is the founder of a zero waste brand called Simple. So she lived in Denmark, and when she returned to Ukraine, she wanted to develop the zero waste movement in her city and in Ukraine as a whole. So she first created her own brand called Simple to help others make it easier to transition from disposable to reusable. And then in 2019, Katerina organized the first Zero Waste Lutsk Festival in her city. And since then, she's been in high demand. So she's been given more than 50 lectures and seminars and masterclasses for many different groups, from school children to students to enterprises, authorities. And she then registered the NGO Zero Waste Lutsk in 2021. So without further ado, Katerina, I hand you the floor, and we look forward to hearing all about your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie, for such a kind presentation of me. Today, I will tell you about a project that we made last year. One moment. Yeah, I'm sharing my screen. Do you see presentation?
Yeah, all good. Yeah.
Wait. So, hello, everyone. My name is Katerina, and I'm head of the NGO Zero Waste Lutsk. Also, I'm a permaculture designer, and last year I organized the first gardens in my life, which were completely different from each other. And one of them was on the balcony in my flat, and the other one in the city space. So how it looks. I dreamed of making a vegetable gardens on my yard and in the city, but something always went wrong. And last year, it became a reality thanks to the Alliance. In May, Sophia asked me what project I would like to implement, because the Alliance has the opportunity to finance it, and without hesitation, I said it should be a city garden. It was something new for me, but I had a clear plan of action in my head. Partners in this project became the local university, the Department of Youth and Sports from the City Council of Lutsk, and another NGO as Rosbody Initiatives. In the first stage, we agreed on the plot of land. It was a little land of earth near the lake, and a little forest on the backyard of the university. I drew the design of garden. We decided to stop at a simple but rectangle shape for beds. After that, our team calculated the estimate and looked for materials. This took the most time. We managed to find a local producer of wood and soil. I bought the seeds in a store and picked the ones that can grow faster. All that remained to us, it was to make beds and prepare the opening day. We worried about opening the garden too late, at the end of July, because we heard many skeptical opinions that the garden will not have time to ripen on time. But to our surprise, many visitors and local media came to the opening. This showed that the topic is interesting to the community, and there are those who are ready to rent a garden beds. Because we made the beds ourselves, we had time to prepare only 15 beds out of the 20 planned, and one composter for the opening. I had an idea that the people who come should just plant the plants in the prepared beds and hold some kind of lecture or activity for them. But due to the fact that we barely had time to prepare the beds, we had to wriggle out and announce it a master class for everyone. It turned out that our mistake was a great idea because because people saw the whole process and took part in it. We laid the beds according to the permaculture principle of warm height beds. It means we did some layers, cupboard on the bottom, then leaves and mole grass, then cut branches and soil on the top. Everything except soil was local from the territory of the university, which showed to people how resources can be reused. So you can see here's the such joint work united us a lot. Many people got to know each other, and people exchanging knowledges to each other. The opening was attended by our library, other NGOs, businesses, refugee, mass media, city council, university teachers, members of our NGO, and our friends. An important element of a city garden is a composter. With it, we wanted to draw attention to the fact that organic residues are not garbage, but valuable resources. We made it big so that anyone from the city who wants to start composting can bring their compost here. We also made a sign with information that can and cannot throw into it. You can see it on the middle. And this is what has grown in our garden in more than 2 months. So we really have a harvest. There were a lot of greens, tomatoes, residue, turnips, zucchini, edible flowers, herbs, strawberries. So you can see on the pictures. Our colleagues and from Lviv even visited us too. You can see on picture Irina. The most active visitors to our gardens were our library, which booked several more beds for this season. At the end of the autumn, we held several lectures and masterclasses to which we invited students and the teachers of the university and everyone else. One topic was about composting. The second was about preparing the beds for wintering. We were shown that organic waste can be placed immediately in the beds, which simplifies and speeds up the transformation of organic residues into soil. People really liked this information because it was something new for them. By the way, our garden became so popular that the project Victory Gardens in Ukraine contacted us and offered to finance another vegetable garden in our city. Right now, we are starting work on it. So in conclusion, I want to show a short video of how everything happened. If you have any question, I will be happy to answer them. One moment. So.
Katerina, we can't hear the sound for some reason.
You know, I know you're making up the truth.
What?
The sound is not working completely, but it works a bit. Don't worry. Keep going.
One moment, I will try again. And now?
Yeah, it's okay. For me,
Okay.
You know, I know you're making up the truth. Why can't I go before I lose my cool? I love you even if it's difficult. Don't worry just because I need to leave. Don't mean I'm sick of us, of you and me. I'm just not good at showing sympathy. Give me a break. I'm not angry anymore, just a little bit let down. I'm not angry anymore, just a little upset now. 'Cause I wanna be better than I was before, but I can't do it if you don't mature. Not angry anymore, just a little bit let down. I love the way you look me in the eyes when you joke up but can't apologize, 'cause you are too afraid to hurt your pride. I guess you were just so misunderstood. You know I'm never truly gone for good. If I could look inside your brain, you know I would. You know I would. You know I'm not angry anymore, just a little.
So I finished my presentation.
thank you very much, Katerina. That was really amazing, and also your pictures are really beautiful. The photos of everything is it's great to see. I'm just checking if anyone has any questions for Katerina. You can of course come back to it later. We'll have time for Katerina to share anything later. Any questions for Katerina now? I mean, perhaps one that I can ask you is how maybe have you kind of taken what you've learned from setting up the garden and the composting to kind of replicate it possibly in other places? You said there's a second one, but maybe even beyond your city. Are there kind of key lessons that you've taken out that you could share with others and you would do differently?
Oh, that preparing take a lot of time. So you must good thinking about what design you must do, because at first I want to make some design like the sun, but after that I understand it will take a lot of time. And also it must be a good communication with other partners, because we can think differently. So we must agree at the first time, and then it will be easy to prepare in the project. I think this two position is more important.
Great, thank you. And we've got a question as well through the Q&A, the chat box for you. Is the ownership kind of the garden and everything settled? And how do you manage sharing, you know, the harvest and the vegetables and everything?
I don't know if I understand the right,
So,
but I will answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
We made it I can tell that we made it in the in the end of the summer almost, because the harvest must be opening on the April, maybe May, but the end of July, it really I forget this word in English. And because of that, we don't have a good management. And I tell people in my Instagram and Facebook that everybody can come and grow something and take everything that they want. But for this season, we so it's work not so good, if really. But in this season, we want to make a good management and tell people what they can do. And I think it will be better this year.
Great.
I understand right or no?
Yes, and then we have a few questions coming in for you in the Q&A. So from Enzo, hi Enzo, who says, "Way to go, Katerina." And then he's asking if there are any plans to make the compost part bigger, and maybe even start a collection scheme for organics throughout the city. Because he says it's really great that you accept already organics delivered by people in there, but are there plans to make it wider? And
yeah, I made this garden with dreams about a bigger composter in our city, because we a little city with everyone here growing something. So for us, it's normal. And I think with this project, we can show people how to compost organic waste. Yeah, I want it to become more it become I forget I forget the word. Yeah.
Okay, great. And I've got Maxime as well, who's asking on like what does the garden, the land it sits on, who does it belong to, and who authorized the creation?
The city council of our city, other NGOs, library, university teachers and students. So everyone who wants to grow something. My friends asked me last week about, so what you will do this year? Can I maybe take one bed for me? So
Okay,
I don't know, but
yeah, great.
The season is start.
Yes, it's the start. Great, and I've got more questions coming in from you, but we can come back to questions later on as well. So from Neil, and he actually had a similar question for Ola earlier, but we will talk through that a bit later on, is how much kind of is this a different way for the community to engage and cooperate compared to before? Were the things similar already happening, or is this a different way for the community to come together and do things together? Is it different? Has the community engaged differently? Is this something quite new?
This project is really new, but because of that, our city is a little city, and many people know each other. So it's not the first project where we made something together. But garden, it's really something new, and we have a very big interest of media, not only from City Lutsk, but from our Ukraine media, big media. So.
Wow, amazing. Great. Thank you, Katerina. I see some other questions coming in, but we'll keep them for later.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to thank you, really. That's amazing. And thanks for all the questions. I would now like to introduce our next speaker and our last speaker for today's webinar. And this is Irina Mironova. Irina is the executive director of Zero Waste Lviv, which is the first city to become a candidate zero waste city in Ukraine. She's also one of the founding members of the Zero Waste Alliance Ukraine. Irina, you have a master's in ecology and environmental protection, and also professional certificates in environmental policy. So lots of experience. And you also have 15 years of professional experience as a sustainability manager, as a business consultant, and also as a corporate engagement officer for the World Wildlife Fund of Ukraine. And Irina is also a member of the Environmental Board of Platz, which is a national scouting organization in Ukraine. So Irina is going to tell us about some of the work she's been doing in Lviv. So over to you, Irina, and I'll let you share your screen for your presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very glad to be here with you and share our story from Lviv in this challenging time. Our zero waste story started from the time in 2016 when Lviv looked like that. So there was a huge accident on Lviv landfill, and then we simply didn't have any place to put our waste because other municipalities rejected to accept the waste. It was a bit politically induced, but anyway, when you see the amount of waste that is generated in the city, we gathered together as a volunteering initiative, and that's how we learned about Zero Waste Cities program and started to do something about it in our city. And as I explain you later, it actually really helps in the case of emergency. And it's a bit, when emergency comes, it's difficult to go zero waste, but if you have zero waste practices in place, it can really help. So our mission is to become a zero waste case for Ukraine and the world, a very ambitious one, and we are on our way to zero waste city, as Stephanie mentioned at the beginning, was a commitment to become one. We have since 2020 a separate collection of organic waste, sporadic curbside collection of plastic and glass bottles. We have different NGOs that collect, for example, textile for reuse, separate collections of batteries, etc. And our organization particularly work more in the waste prevention programs, even though that we help a lot municipality with the communication of the other waste management, the waste management activities, and we do lots of waste morphology studies in the city. Everything, as you know, as Zero Waste City Good Recipe says us to do. You can learn more about Zero Waste Lviv and what is done in the city through this State of the Zero Waste Cities report published by Zero Waste Europe. And recently, last year, before COP, we presented the case of Lviv in the report Zero Waste to Zero Emissions, and calculated how we can reduce the greenhouse gas emissions from the zero waste policies in place. And also, of course, there are a lot of interesting information about our work on our website, and we try to provide it also in English. Not always possible, but the war come to our country, so we are kind of lucky ones. Sometimes I'm joking that, so that Lviv is to the very right of the picture, very close to the border with Poland, so quite away from the war zone, in contrast to our colleagues in Kharkiv. And the Lviv was and is a major gate for refugees to go outside of the country, and for humanitarian cargoes to get into the country. And Lviv, since the war, a lot of humanitarian hubs and warehouses started, which and also the city population get extra water now. But in the very early stage of war, on March and April, when Kyiv region and Sumy, Kharkiv, the north of Ukraine, was also occupied, according to the mobile data, the population of the city was about 2 million people daily. So they were constantly moving. So you can imagine what the waste pressure was put into the city. And unfortunately, I must say that we don't know how to react to the emergencies without using single use. And that's probably my major point right from the beginning, that that's the big challenge we have to accept. And I'll share what we were able to, what we piloted, what we tried, what we were able to do in Lviv. So this is the picture from the railway station in March of 2022. Over 5,000 refugees daily coming to the cities. People were fleeing their homes, usually with small bags, mainly women and with children. And of course, the numerous small and large businesses, mainly restaurants from Lviv, humanitarian aid organizations, city council established the numerous facilities around the railway station to provide food. The schools, even stadiums, theaters, like all the free places were set up to provide the temporary shelters for refugees. And of course, as you can imagine, that's the waste toll that was put on the city. So we decided to try just a little bit to especially talking to the restaurants with whom we worked previously, what we can do. And I must say that they were the first one who approached us, because they say, you know, we spend so much money on single-use plastic. We better provide more food to people, not the plastic. So we with team piloted different things, but unfortunately, I think that we still need to work to scale it up. First of all, when people are coming from different cities, and if they are not used to have their own reusable cup or water bottle with them, so that's where the zero waste lifestyle helps a lot. They didn't have any of these items, but can you imagine how many single-use cups on the way they can produce? Instead, we collected from the citizens of Lviv the reusable cups and distributed them on the railway station. And people were very, very appreciative. To the right in green, there was woman from Kharkiv, and she said, I used to have my cup, but in the case of emergency, I totally forgot to take it with me, and I am really thankful that I can have the hot beverage on my way to the safety. Then we also tried to establish sort of deposit, not deposit, but reusable cups for tea, so people can return them. And then with the help of our Italian colleagues, we bought the professional washing machines, so they can be used. They can be washed properly on the venue, but again, at some point, even though the cafe that provided this food wasn't far from the railway station, the gasoline prices hiked because on the first months of the war, the fuel depot was blown up by Russians. And it was even difficult to move the reusable cups, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't work on that. And if cafes on the railway station would have the enough water capacity to install the washing machine, probably we could hack this problem as well. So that's again the point that the earlier you start your zero waste initiatives, the easier it will be to handle the emergency. Then we keep working with our partner restaurants, around 15 restaurants, and they say, look, we need more reusable tableware on the to bring to the places where refugee lives, and also help us to buy on the photo to the right corner this containers, so we can bring hot food and then redistribute it on the at the place where refugees stay, so that we don't bring the cold food in the single-use containers and not again waste money on single-use plastic. We also helped with these white boxes. Fortunately, some donors allowed us to switch the project so we can support this reuse options and help in partnership with business to lessen a little bit, in a tiny bit, I would say, the waste burden on our city. Because again, as you remember, we still don't have landfill, and we still have to track our waste quite long distances. For landfilling, and single-use, as you know, is not recyclable. So then we start working with the modular, how to say, camps. So there were a couple, 3 of them in Lviv, where about 300 families would live. And we noticed that the administration said that there is a lot of waste compared to the people who live in the apartment buildings, and we start doing waste audit, and it turns out that because it is the modular place where people live was set up the way they don't have fridges in their small fridges in their small rooms, and also they bring the food is brought to them in the single-use containers, so they don't have any opportunity to actually neither store food nor say to choose what they like or they don't like to eat. And during the summer, we got enormous amount of food waste as well. So these are results of the waste audit. And also in the picture to the right, you can see what we found of the perfectly usable items from the that were actually thrown away by these people, just because there was no place where to store unneeded humanitarian aid, or some just things were brought on them, and they didn't really need them. So we start working with this modular city. We provided them all with reusable containers. We put such simple thing as a marker on their common fridges on the so that they can mark their own food in the containers, to put the number of the room number or something like that. And the company that the organization, the large organizations that provided food, we asked them to switch and bring it in the reusable large containers, so people get only the food they really need, they want to eat, and the quantity they need. And I must say that here you see the help from the large worldwide known organizations that provide food relief around the world whenever emergency is. And there is nothing in the protocol regarding to how to minimize both food waste and single-use waste. So we have to, if we are talking about joining effort and intersectionality in our work, that's probably something that we have to start working on, working with the humanitarian aid providers, and make sure that the aid that is provided is not causing the waste burden. And at this point, I would really I want to sympathize with the people from Turkey and Syria who were hit by a strong earthquake recently. But at the same time, I understand that all the relief there will also be with all these single-use items. So there are a lot of challenges and work in front of us. We also understood that and leverage on our previous work with the reusable menstrual products, reusable nappies, because mainly in our city, refugees are women and women with children, and even citizens of Lviv and around the country were hit pretty hard economically. The economic of Ukraine dropped severely because of war. So providing free reusable menstrual products, teaching on potty training and how to use reusable nappies, we consider it can lessen the financial burden on the most fragile categories of the population. And here I would like to thank you, our partners from Zero Waste Europe, our colleagues from Croatia, from Hungary, for providing us with the reusable options here. But life continues in the city, and we also piloted with one of the city park. We put our first special construction. This time it is a boat for 6 different recycling sections. And you can see on the picture to the right that we then check whether people do recycle, and people do recycle when we provide them with a fun way to do it, a good infrastructure, and also with when they see that other people are doing it as well. We presented it at a small festival in this area. It's in a neighbors festival, and this initiative was well received by the municipality, and we hope that in other parks next year we will have more of this fun ways to recycle in the city. So as I mentioned, the information, a lot of new people came to city, and Lviv is the only place where we have separate organic collection system in place, and we are a little bit more advanced in separate collection and in zero waste option than other cities. So, but how to provide the information to all these people, new people in the city? The municipality developed a chatbot with all the necessary information for refugees regarding the where to stay, how to go to other places, how to make sure that all your papers are all right, how to get health counseling, psychological counseling, where you can have a humanitarian ad. And we asked, what about if we add and develop and put together the information on waste management for people? And now, among all the needed information in this chatbot, people also can find information about waste management. So having a good communication in place for in your city before the crisis happens can actually help you during the crisis as well. I will continue refraining to this idea. Someone asked whether we tackle the water issue. Many people from other cities don't know that we have actually drinkable tap water in the city, and they would keep buying bottled water as they used to in their cities and wasting money on that. So we also promoted the tap water and water fountains through this chatbot. As I said, we have a municipal composting plant, and we keep working with people to enhance separate organic collection. The containers are available throughout the city, and 2 years ago, the law on ban on single-use plastic bags was voted by our parliament, and the January 1st this year, it finally came into working full scale. So now the biodegradable bags are available in the city, and we spent our January in the communicating this practice to our to Lviv residents, and now we kind of help them to start to enhance a separate organic collection with the biodegradable bags and how to live without plastic bags. We work with restaurants. Again, if you join project with our partners for our other members of Alliance was Kherson Zero Waste, Mariupol Zero Waste, and we did audits for restaurants to help them move towards zero waste. And the last point, but not that, remember that war is probably the least problem of the war, but war is also about municipal light waste. Today is 349th day of war, and hundreds of thousands of Russian combatants came to Ukraine, and that's the picture to the right, how the place looked like when they are kicked out of it. But we try to help our military not to be like them, and help them with we collect donations and buy reusable campwear for our soldiers and some thermos and other reusable options, so they can have hot meals whenever they are, and can protect us, and because to be honest, we have to thank them that we can continue to do all the zero waste work we are doing here. So if you want, you can support us to help support our military, because they are the true hero here. So as a closing statement, the questions we have to think about how we respond to emergencies. And I must say here that there will be lots of emergencies around the world because of the climate change. Hopefully not because of war, but it's not excluded either. So how to provide humanitarian net without burdening the recipient countries with waste. We are right now started the study on what is with medical humanitarian aid, and we have cases of outdated medical supplies. We have lots of unwearable clothes that was sent to us, full tracks of all the post-COVID stuff, etc. And our volunteers, to be honest, are very sad about it, because and all this waste basically stays on the landfills here. So that's something we have to do about. Again, how to inform newcomers about the waste management rules in the community. That's something probably interesting around the Europe, probably like the good practices around. And I really hope that Ukrainians are quick learners and don't mess up the systems around the Europe. Then how to provide food and drinks with not single-use, and then after the victory, how we were gonna clean up the nature from all the trash that was left there. And it's I'm not talking about debris from ruining the buildings in the cities and communities, but actually how we take all the trash from the natural environment. The best time to start zero waste is now, and separate organic collection lessen in general the burden from our city, and it helps to maintain city cleaner. Deposit return schemes can really be helpful when you have spikes on influx of people coming inside, and reusable where possible can minimize not only waste but also affect people's economic situation. And of course, repair programs should be developed as well. So this is our plan for the nearest future, and thank you very much. Sorry for being not stick to the time of 10 minutes. But if you have any questions, I'd be glad to.
Thank you, Irina. Thank you so much. There are some questions already coming in for you and for actually Ola and Katerina as well. So we have about 15 minutes left. So I thought maybe we could, I'll ask you one of the questions that's come in for you, Irina, and we can jump in and welcome everyone back into all the speakers back into the webinar, so that we can have a discussion. Because, for example, one of the question that came in is also around kind of the zero waste solution that you've been talking about for emergency situation. And I don't know if that's something that also Katerina and Ola, you know about that kind of our lessons learned, and also what has happened, for example, with the garden now, Katerina, is it still going fine, etc., with the impact of the war? Is that something that's manageable, and are there any prevention measures you can put in place? So I don't know if, Irina, I know you've been talking about the kind of the emergency side of it, or the kind of key points that you want to share in terms of the lessons learned of that could be useful to share with others.
start working with the humanitarian aid providers and the cities, because they are the one who do the large-scale procurement to bring all the single-use help. They try to do their best, of course. It's not, no one is bringing this just to trash the city. But at the same time, it can be economically much more viable, especially if we are talking the water bottles and reusable cups for to be distributed at the place of arriving for people, especially in the cold climate, and especially when they flee the cities where no electricity and water, to the more safe environment like this. So it should be considered the reusable options first. Should be considered whether in the place where people are coming, the water is drinkable, and if it is, there is no need to send the full large trucks of water and etc. It is needed in some places, especially in the Kherson region, where we have in Neitmon, even in a before war, we had some water problems because of the salinity of the groundwaters, but definitely not in other places. So probably let's start this dialogue.
Okay, thank you very much.
Laboratory.
Yeah. I don't know, Ola or Katerina, I don't know if you had any thoughts on that. And there was a question for you, Katerina, about if the garden is still fine, it's not being damaged with the war, and it's still going fine right now.
Yeah, everything is okay. We are lucky because in Lutsk we don't have bomb attack, so everything is going good.
Okay, that's good. That's positive. Thank you. I'm inviting all of you to keep sending the questions in, but as they come in, I will keep asking questions to our wonderful panelists. And there was also one comment from Neil from UK Win. Just he was sharing that there would be definitely some interest from the big media channels on all these stories of hope and resilience. And so he was just even given a name of a potential journalist who's been doing these kind of documentaries also on plastic pollution in the Nile River. So it's just an idea for you to think about. I'm sure you're already in contact with the media, but this could be something that really shows kind of how community and civic life continues despite these very difficult circumstances. And then I had a question for you, or a couple of questions for you, Ola, around the work in Kharkiv. Wondering if there were any reuse and recycling facilities before the Eco Hub was set up, if you know.
Yeah, I asked Anna about it, and Anna said that she really doesn't remember anything systematic in Kharkiv. There were donation fairs, like a garage sale, we called it in Ukraine, when people gathered together in some places, for example, in park, and share their clothes, accessories, and any kind of thing. And she said that it happened about once every 6 months. And also in Kharkiv, there were a lot of charitable organizations like, Red Cross or a charitable organization attached to the church. And before the Eco Hub, there was a shelter, the back. I mentioned it in my presentation. So the appearance. Continue. I saw the rest of question, so I can answer all of that. And the appearance of Eco Hub and then the network of hubs, of course, influence the popularization of zero waste principle and zero waste waste management, because in this way it reached a more significant number of people, and those who used the mobile point Shelter the Bag, they began to come to the fixed point, to our Eco Hub. And also Anna said that the unique thing is that everything is on one place, and people rethink things not as poverty alleviation, but as overuse of resources, because at first people was afraid to come and to take things from us, because they can afford to buy a new one. And Kharkiv Zero Waste conducted a great amount of work and information campaign to popularize the reuse zone, to popularize their Eco Hub. Yeah. I hope I answered the question.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much, Ola. Thank you. And Irina, maybe one for you from Lydia, who's saying that it's really great that you are thinking about all these preventing measures already. And she was wondering what you found maybe the most difficult in terms of engaging more people to be eco-friendly and conscious and, you know, thinking about zero waste and practices.
For me, it's usually my main interest is to make the change systemic, and how we can put it into the more policy context, and how to make things that our pilots then becomes norms for the city. And the most difficult part is that city council and all officials are so overwhelmed with all different issues that they are facing, that sometimes you just have to do your work in hope that when it's all over, we can kind of reflect on who was doing what, and to bring best practices forward. But at the same time, yes, the key thing is that in the case of the emergency, all the relations you have beforehand, they will work first. There is no time for building a new one, even though that is happening, of course. But first of all, you rely on those you already know, you already understand, you already worked with, and who share your principles and understand the topic.
Great. Thank you very much, Irina, for that. Yeah. Yeah, like you said, the systemic change is obviously crucial. We're getting towards almost the end of our time. We've got 7 minutes left. I thought I might ask each of you, our panelists, if you could share in maybe 1 minute one kind of key message or key reflection from today's discussion for the rest of our attendees here, and then we can conclude with some few words. If Irina, in 1 minute, if you have any kind of last reflection you wanted to share, last message.
Go zero waste and start it now. It can help you in the future for sure.
Thank you, Irina. Thank you. Ola?
Yeah, maybe my last word here will be, let's beat the garbage, let's win the war. So I really hope that we will the war and we will beat the garbage all over the Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, Ola. And Katerina?
Let's grow our own food and composting food waste.
Yes, thank you. So thank you very much to all our panelists. Thank you, Irina, Ola, and Katerina, for these sharing these incredible stories and practices, and really just what you're doing that gives hope and resilience to everyone. So before we end this webinar, we also maybe wanted to mention that our 2022 report on the state of zero waste municipalities is going to come out at the end of February. So just keep an eye out for that on our website and social media and our newsletters, etc. As we mentioned, the Zero Waste live webinars happen once a month. So the next webinar topic will be on beyond circular fashion, why we need to end overproduction. We will let you know once we will publish, of course, all the information very, very soon. We're just fixing the last information and the final date. So again, keep an eye out on our social media, etc. And of course, you can check lots of information on the Zero Waste Cities website, where you will find the presentations and video from today's speakers and many other resources. So we can share that as well in the chat box. And we have a Zero Waste Cities newsletter that you can also sign up to. So you can do that. And we also have a Zero Waste Europe newsletter that you can sign up to through our website. So it's almost time to say goodbye. And we wanted to really, really thank all of you, Irina, Ola, and Katerina, for really sharing these incredible stories and just showing all the incredible work you've been doing, and the courage and resilience, and how you work with so many different communities through these difficult times. And also thank you to everyone who joined us today for our Zero Waste live webinar. Thank you for the incredible discussion and questions. And we hope to see you all very soon online. And until then, wishing you a great afternoon. Thank you.